Hi, and welcome to Something to Talk About. I'm Linda McNamee, and for the next hour, we are going to pretend that we're smart. And by the end of the hour, we will be. Okay, before I begin, and as usual, I would like to thank the crew this evening. We have Mike Duvall and Corey McNeil, who are staff members, who help keep BCAT running and looking good all the time. Thank you, guys. Thank you, gentlemen. We also have Colleen Moore, Director Extraordinaire. We have Jolie Atwood and Maddie Shipka, who have given up their Wednesday evenings to come hang out with the cat, also known as BCAT. And last but definitely not least, I would like to thank my husband Paul for staying home for Daddy Date Night. Hopefully the children are cooperating with you, because it has been a long day. And for those of you at home, feel free to give us a call. We are live this evening, so you can always call us at 781-270-9199 if you have a question for us, or you can always email me at talk@bcattv.org. I love to get email. Okay, now that the administrative stuff is out of the way, I would like to welcome my wonderful guest, Miss Jenn Scheffer.
Hi.
Yes, I did it right.
You did.
Thank you. Who is, you're going to have to remind me of your title.
I am a mobile learning coach for Burlington Public Schools. I'm the technology integration specialist, specifically at Burlington High School.
Wow.
And I'm the facilitator of the Burlington High School Help Desk.
And you get paid for every character
I sure
in
do.
your title.
Wouldn't that be nice?
How do you fit that on a business card, a postcard?
Very carefully.
Okay. Well, thank you for coming.
Thank you so much for having me.
I was joking earlier saying that I was a psychology major, and I used to know a lot about computers and technology until I married a software engineer. And
you've been learning ever since?
No, actually I haven't. I let him do everything.
There you
go.
go.
I hope to learn a lot this evening. So thank you for coming.
Thank you so much for having me.
As we usually start out, just can you tell me a little bit about yourself, you know, where you grew up, how you eventually got into technology, and what led you to Burlington, you know, working here at Burlington?
Sure. It's definitely not where I thought I'd end up, as most people. I grew up in Merrimack, New Hampshire. I still live in the Granite State, so I have a lovely 45-minute commute without traffic on a daily basis.
Although even if you lived in this area, you still might have a 45-minute commute.
Yeah, it took me 10 minutes to go a mile and a half today. But I've gotten used to the commute. It's actually well worth it. I grew up in Merrimack, New Hampshire, and I went to school at the University of South Carolina for 2 years. I majored in communication. Actually transferred back to New Hampshire and finished my degree at New Hampshire College. And then New Hampshire College became Southern New Hampshire University.
I was wondering about that.
Yeah, it was a name change. And then I decided I wanted to pursue my master's degree. Mom and Dad said, great, you're going to have to pay for it because we have no more money. So I...
Funny, my parents said the same thing to me.
Yes, I was very creative even back in those days. So I thought, well, how can I get this master's degree paid for? So I became a graduate assistant working in the admissions office at New Hampshire College. It was still New Hampshire College at the time. And my career goal at that time was to go into corporate training, which was, I think, my third major. I originally was a theater major. When I soon realized there weren't a whole lot of 4'9.5" actresses out there in the world, I decided.
Although a friend of mine lives out in LA and she's about 4'9".
Yeah, now that Kristen Chenoweth and Kelly Ripa and a lot of different little petite actresses, I'm thinking maybe but I'm a teacher now, so I'm kind of an actress.
Which still requires a lot of acting.
Yeah, so I did broadcast journalism briefly. I actually interned at WMUR TV in New Hampshire when I transferred. But long story short, I ended up being a communications major. The master's degree program was business education, and I decided to try and pursue a certificate for corporate training. So I thought, I'm going to get into the corporate world. The admissions, the graduate assistant job that I earned in the admissions office required me to travel and recruit students 3 months out of the year. So I was on the road.
Was it like 3 straight months, or was it like?
Pretty much, yeah. We got a rental car. It was a great job right out of college. An expense account, traveled a lot, and my territory was Long Island, New York.
Ooh.
I was in Jersey, spent a week outside of DC, did some travel also in New Hampshire and Maine, Vermont, traveled all over recruiting students. So I would attend college fairs, and then I would visit about 4 schools during the day, and I'd go into guidance offices, and I'd present about the school that I was representing, and I started working a lot with high school students. And
I don't think they had that when I was in high school.
Or
everybody avoided my school.
Yeah, yeah. So started working a lot with high school kids and guidance counselors and learning about the admissions process. And when recruiting season was over, that's when the applications started pouring in, and I'd review applications, make admissions decisions. I would coordinate accepted student days, and then I transitioned specifically into recruitment for our hospitality program and our culinary arts school. Started coordinating events for that, and was pursuing my master's at the same time. And I started really liking working with high school kids and helping them through that transition from high school to college. It was really rewarding to meet kids out on the road, make contact with them, and then continue that communication and see them through the whole admission cycle up into them becoming students on our campus.
Now, once they became students, did you maintain any communication with them, or was it just like...
To some degree, but just to know that I helped the student and their family find the right fit. You know, a lot of kids say they picked the school because it just felt like the right fit. They felt comfortable there. They could see themselves there, so on and so forth. And I was highly involved at New Hampshire College when I was an undergraduate. I was a resident assistant. It was a very small school.
It must have made it easier for you to like recruit.
It did, yeah. I knew the type of school. I knew the school inside and out, and I knew the kinds of students that would succeed there. So that's when I really started thinking about, you know what, I think I want to get even closer to students and have an even greater impact on their development, and I could do that if I became a teacher. So I decided, rather than to pursue the corporate training route, I decided to earn my teaching certificate.
Because you were still in school at the time.
I was. So I was balancing working on the road and recruiting and then going to school. I left the graduate assistant job and became full-time in the admissions office, was in pursuing my degree part-time, and then when I finished, that's when I got my first teaching job, and it was in Litchfield, New Hampshire. It was at Campbell High School.
What did you teach?
I was a business management and marketing and computer technology teacher.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So I taught in a lab, one-to-one, so to speak. It was a PC lab. There was no internet or Google. I was teaching keyboarding, block scheduling, an hour and a half of keyboarding. I can't believe I did that back in that day. I was there
gouging my eyes out.
Yeah, it was. We had a program. We had a software program for that. Then I left Campbell and I taught for a year at my alma mater, Merrimack High School. And
was that weird going back to your school, having your former teachers be your peers?
Yeah, and I wasn't. They were still, you know, Mr. Roy, and I couldn't do the first name thing. I was a department of one. As I was at Campbell. I was the only business teacher. And in both schools, I managed the school store, and I was also the advisor for Future Business Leaders of America. So I was taking students to state and national conferences, and my department meetings were a breeze because it was just me.
Just me.
You know, but
yeah, but then you start talking to yourself. And,
So I then had the opportunity to join an actual business department at Pinkerton Academy in Derry, New Hampshire, the largest school in the state of New Hampshire, about 3,400 students.
Wow.
About the size of this district, actually. And they had a department of 8 teachers, and their department head at the time reached out to me. We had actually then taken a graduate course together, and when they had an opening, she had remembered me and reached out, asked if I would consider applying, and of course I jumped at the opportunity. Pinkerton had an outstanding reputation, so...
But now your departmental meetings were going to be a lot longer.
They were, yeah. So I was at Pinkerton for 8 years. I did business management, marketing. I ran their school-based enterprise, and then I transitioned from... I did Future Business Leaders of America for several years there, and then I became the DECA advisor there, and I was doing computer technology, and then I decided it's time to go back to school. So I started pursuing a second master's, and this time it was in administration. So I earned my certificate to be a school principal in the state of New Hampshire. And it was around 2011 and 12 when I took a graduate course called Technology for School Leaders. And that's when I got exposed to connecting through social media with other educators. And
so just like at the educator level, not teaching it to the kids at this point.
Correct. Using social media tools to build a professional learning network, or PLN is what they call it. And
now, did you also use like LinkedIn? Or?
Not at the time, no. We were assigned to use Twitter. So whenever people say, you know, how did you get your job at Burlington, I always say, I got it through Twitter. So what happened was we were assigned to participate in a Twitter chat. And prior to this, I thought Twitter was a waste of time. It was really only something used by the Kardashians and Jimmy Fallon, and it was just nonsense.
I don't want to tweet. It sounds too flaky.
I didn't get it, really. And so I went on and started, our professor had given us some of the quote-unquote big names in the education space to follow. And so I went through this chat, and I still didn't really get it. But as I was exploring the tool and finding various people, I was realizing, you know, these people have literally 30, 40, 50,000 followers. And who are these people? And they were all educators and school administrators. And so I thought, I'm missing something. Something's going on in the education space, and I need to be a part of it. I have 2 master's degrees. I can figure this out. So I went back.
I can do this.
Yeah, I went back and started digging a little bit deeper, and that's when I discovered Burlington and all the folks that are connected here in Burlington. And I started learning about this district, the philosophy, the emphasis on meaningful integration of technology in the classroom, their one-to-one iPad program, and I was just captivated. And really,
I want to learn more about that now that I have kids that are entering the system.
Exactly.
And they can use my phone better than I can.
Exactly. And I'm glad you brought that up, actually, because in my classroom at Pinkerton, I started allowing students to use their smartphones in the classroom. I started Skyping with professionals that I started meeting on Twitter, bringing people in virtually. I like to use the term went rogue with Google Apps, because we were not a Google Apps school. I discovered Google Apps and cloud-based technology, which I know we're going to talk about that later, but it really changed the way I was doing my instruction and my assessment and connecting with my students. So when I discovered Burlington, they had been doing this for several years already. So they were really inspiring to me as a district. And I remember seeing the Apple distinguished video that they had produced. And I was just thinking, wow, this is the really epitome of the kind of school district I want to work in, progressive in terms of their mindset and their focus on student empowerment and students as leaders in their technology initiatives. And I thought, this would be my dream district to work at. That was actually something I said in my interview, and they'll never let me live it down. But it truly was. I remember some of those
as long
lines.
as the dream doesn't turn into a nightmare.
It hasn't.
And then I woke up.
No, so I found out about a visit that they were doing. They were having a conference here that they had annually called their one-to-one summit. So I got to come here and visit and learn more about their one-to-one initiative. I got to go into classrooms and see the iPad being used by teachers and students, and I met several of the members of the BPS EdTech team, and it was just a really eye-opening experience. So I took all that back to Pinkerton, and we were thinking about a large-scale technology initiative in my department specifically was career and technical education. And then the stars aligned because there was an opening here for their technology integration specialist and somebody to take over their help desk program, which is an actual course called Student Technology Integration and Innovation. It's part of their business department.
And you actually teach that?
I teach that, yeah. So that's the long story, and
but it was a good story.
It's a great story, and so I got the position, and this is my 3rd year, and I would say to the students it's like being at Disney because it's the happiest place on earth. So I go through the worst
you just
part.
don't have to wear the mouse ears.
Right. The worst part is the commute, but it's worth it. Other than that, you know, and I've connected a lot with other folks that have just a lengthy commute as well. So we chit chat in the morning, and it makes the drive go by pretty quick.
Excellent.
So come here every day and do the best I can to help teachers and students.
Okay, excellent. Wow, no, my brain is like full.
Sorry.
No, it's okay.
I tend to do that.
Now, a couple of the things that you said, let's jump around a little bit.
Sure.
Start talking about the help desk as a class.
Yep.
Just tell me more about that.
Sure. So it's a semester-based class. It recently became an honors level course, which I'm really excited about because...
As it should be.
I agree 100% because it's not a real world simulation, it is the real world. And that's a quote from one of my students last year who created a video to promote our program, and that's her narration. She actually says that at the end. This help desk is not a real world simulation, it is the real world.
Yeah, you can't really fake that.
No.
It's, you know.
So it's structured as a Genius Bar, modeled after the Apple Genius Bar.
Okay.
So it's in a central location. It's in the back of the library at the high school. It's open 6 out of 7 periods a day. I do have
now,
one
how do you do
period
that?
off.
Do you have like rotating?
Yep, there are between 1 and 3 students per period that work in the help desk.
Okay.
And we have this, you know, open door policy. Anybody can come in. Students, teachers, administrators. We have some people on the school committee who have come in, who have been getting some training from my students, and they will troubleshoot any and all technology issues, whether it's on an iPad, predominantly iPads.
Okay.
We have students.
Or Mac-based.
We have teachers that have Macs, PCs. Students will come in with iPhones. I have an Android expert, so anybody with an Android device, we can fix their issues. And we're basically the first line of technology support. So we're a liaison between the teachers and students and the IT department.
Okay.
So my students work with me to make sure that the IT department is freed up to handle bigger issues
or like
regarding
system-wide
exactly
issues.
network, infrastructure. You know, if something happens with the network, which is rare because we have an incredible infrastructure and network here, that's not something that we can resolve. But in terms of technical issues, you know, the sound's not playing on my video, my screen is upside down, I forgot my password, I can't, you know, I can't turn in my work on my iPad into, you know, the way my teacher wants. My kids and I refer to them as my kids. I get to know them very well. We troubleshoot those issues. And if there's something that we can't solve, then we will put in an like IT ticket. Or it's nice because we're right next to the IT department. So if a member of the IT staff is there, they're responsible for all the schools in the district as well as the town offices. So they're not always there. Oftentimes they are, so if we can't troubleshoot the issue, then the IT staff will help.
Alleviate some of their
We handle
workload.
a lot of issues, yeah.
Now, in addition to the Genius Bar, is there also a classroom where you lecture? Or is it just hands-on training?
I haven't lectured in years. I can't remember the last time I lectured. Very much so, yeah. I mean, the first thing, there's a curriculum and learning goals, just like any other course. It's just even the space, the design of the classroom, it's set up just like a real office. It's very, we designed it purposely to feel kind of googly. We have a little soft seating area that has decor from IKEA for customers. It's sort of like this.
Yeah, probably better upholstery.
They're nice, cool red club chairs, and we have a
well, of course, it has to be red.
Absolutely, yep. We have 2 desks that are really, really slick, and they're very modern looking, and they can accommodate, you know, up to 4 people, so that the kids can collaborate. They can have our customers, you know, even if it's a student, they say customer can sit down. We have a wall of Macs. So if we have to push out apps to a whole classroom, we can do that. Macs can be used. We have 2 Apple TVs where we can project. So by design, it's very, very different. And the instruction that I give to the students, it's really one-on-one, really personalized. I have students that work on different things, so I get to know what their interests are, what they're passionate about, and I can kind of tailor their experiences for them. But All of them are responsible for doing app reviews. So if they can explore the App Store. If they locate a specific application that they think would be useful in the classroom, they can do a review on it. The iPad iOS 9.3 was just released, so my students are going to be doing a review on the whole new iOS. What are the features that will impact students and teachers? What should everybody be aware of? They're known as sort of the resident geniuses, and they need to be well versed in the newest technology trends. They also have to do screencasts, so they're actually helping.
What's that?
A screencast is a recording of what's happening on a computer screen or on an iPad screen.
Okay.
So they will literally project their, like I said, their iPad screen, and they'll narrate and walk people through how to do various things.
Ah, cool.
So oftentimes if a student comes in, one of the issues that was pretty common at the start of the school year was students use an application called Notability often. And students were having difficulty getting their work from Notability turned in the right way into Google Classroom, which is a digital workflow application that a lot of teachers were using. And students were not doing it correctly. So my students over and over again were showing students how to do it. So they ended up creating a screencast on how to do it. So it's like
a tutorial type thing.
Yep.
Oh, okay.
An ed tech tutorial. Yep. We call it a screencast. And that's a really challenging, high-level activity for students to do. They've never done it before. And so
I was in training for a few years, and I wouldn't know how to do it.
So they have to write a script. There's a ton of planning that's involved, a lot of takes, and they won't succeed the first time. They have to keep doing it over and over again. And then they will do a weekly reflection. We actually do it every 2 weeks. And that's where they think critically about, what kind of skills are they developing, what communication skills are they developing, problem solving, critical thinking.
Like a self-evaluation.
Exactly. So they're identifying not just what they're doing, but what are the skills that they're developing as a result of those activities, so that ultimately they can sit down with an employer in a job interview someday, or a college admissions officer, and then when they say, tell us about your problem-solving skills, they'll have concrete examples. Tell us about a time when you were creative. Absolutely.
Right.
So they can be creative. I have a student who I think is going to do a new post about how teachers can use Pinterest in the classroom, because I
need to sign up for that.
A lot of teachers use a lot of people use Pinterest for
I'm
recipes.
afraid of Pinterest.
And, there's actually a lot of great educational content on Pinterest. So students pretty much have free reign of over what they want to share, what they're learning and what they want to share. I have several students that use an app called My Homework. And it helps them stay organized and on top of all their assignments. So they've done that.
Like a to-do list type thing?
Yeah, it's a specific app called My Homework. And then one of the most exciting things we're going to be doing, I'm sure you've heard of Snapchat.
Yes.
So I have a freshman who's actually going to be collaborating with myself and Patrick Larkin, our assistant superintendent, and the three of us are going to be launching a district-wide Snapchat, because that's where kids are at right now. So that's the philosophy in this district, which is something that I love, rather than shy away from some of these tools that kids are using. Our leadership's philosophy is
they're using it. Let's
meet them where they're at, and
use it to our advantage.
Let's create this account so that students, teachers, parents, community members can. I'm still learning the Snapchat terminology. I think they can. Add us and look at our stories. So the students are going to be teaching us about this cutting edge social media, which has a bad rap. A lot of people think, Snapchat is bad for kids. Well, it's not that Snapchat's bad. It's what kids are doing with it. So
how you use it.
We're going to be proactive, and we're, and my student, Jillian, who's a freshman, came up with all these great ideas on how teachers could be using Snapchat. And so we're we get on this creative flow where we're just bouncing ideas off each other, and she's the expert on this, and she's a 15-year-old. It's just crazy, and it's exciting. And I said, let's do sort of like maybe a Snapchat tip of the week or something like that, and they're all her ideas. So I'm really excited about that.
So along those lines, I was as you were speaking, I was thinking, how do you find out about new technologies, and which are to implement, do you get all of your ideas from students, or are there like other resources available?
Oh, absolutely. So I definitely use Twitter now.
Okay.
I'm a believer. I'm converted, and I can go onto Twitter, and because I've cultivated a strong network of people who share great content, I can go onto Twitter, and within 10 seconds I can find something that's new and relevant and applicable. That I can dig a little deeper and find out about. I also use, for my own professional learning with technology, Google+.
Okay.
And that's sort of Google's social network. It's kind of like their Facebook, if you will.
Okay.
A lot of great content on there,
Okay.
a lot of very specific, what they call communities. So I'm in a tech coaches community.
Oh, okay.
It's a very strong group. There's about 4,000 members globally.
Okay.
And anytime you have a question related to a technology tool, whether it's an app or a web-based tool, you can post a question in that community and people will respond. And sometimes, oftentimes more so on Google Plus than Twitter. Sometimes you get lost, and there's a lot of promoting on Twitter.
Twitter's more linear, isn't it?
Yeah, you can search by hashtags.
Okay.
And the hashtag is almost like your television
When
station.
did it go from a pound sign to a hashtag?
Yeah, I don't know. Jack Dorsey was the founder of Twitter, but think of hashtags like a channel. Really, you change the channel, HGTV or ESPN. A hashtag is basically tweets that are related to that hashtag. And so there's a hashtag EdTech. We have a hashtag here in the district, BPS Chat for Burlington Public Schools. We have BHS Chat. So I can find things there. I can find things on Google+. I also have started using an app called Voxer.
Ooh, what's that?
And Voxer is a walkie-talkie, basically, type app. It's a really cool app. I actually showed
Is it like audio, or is it?
Yep, it's audio. You can share audio clips, text, images, video now too, even.
Wow.
And what you can do with Voxer is you can create groups that are private. So I belong to sort of a incognito EdTech underground group, and it's a group of people who are
like spies,
relatively close here in proximity to each other, but it's a great way for us to ask each other questions, a lot of sometimes geeky, high-level tech questions, and so there's several Voxer groups, but Voxer is also a great way to connect with students. Your phone number is not shared, so you can just leave a quick audio message. I showed it to some of our world language teachers, and they were using it with their students. So students were recording in the language and then sending the Voxer messages to their teachers for assessment and grading. It's a really great app.
Am I saying this right?
Exactly. And the other thing that's happened as a result of using these tools is I've become very close friends with some of these people. So oftentimes, and they're experts in their field, and we'll call each other. We use a good old-fashioned telephone, and hey, I have this Google Forms question, or how can I do X, Y, Z, and so that's kind of nice. So I went from sort of a naysayer and Twitter, I don't know about this whole Twitter thing, and now some of my closest friends I met through Twitter, and so that's how I stay current, and all the links are shared on these various platforms, and that lead to mostly blog posts that have great content to stay on the cutting edge.
Now, based on all this technology, you have all these different apps and different forums. Just mentioning it now, what is a blog, and how is that different than everything else?
Sure. So I'm glad you asked that too, because my students have their own blogs. It's basically like a website, but the content changes. The goal is to have it updated frequently. I have my own blog, which I try to update as often as I can. I don't get to blog as much as I'd like to, because I'm busy teaching. But
doing all this research on all these other apps.
Exactly. So my students blog, and they have their blog set up into different categories, like I mentioned, the weekly reflections, the app reviews. And so, I mean, blogging is a great potential career path for students. I mean, a lot of companies have their own blogs, and I have a student who has really capitalized on the opportunities that the Help Desk program has provided him with, and he's been a guest blogger on some really well-known education blogs in the country. and he's been a keynote speaker at various educational technology conferences. Timmy Sullivan, I'm going to give him a shout out. But he,
thank you, Timmy.
Yeah, absolutely. He has, like I said, really taken advantage of these opportunities to share his voice and his ideas. And I mean, when we talk about authentic learning and authentic learning experiences, when students blog, and it's not just for me, it's for a global audience.
That's intimidating for me.
Yeah, it's no joke, you know, and that's why we talk about a lot about writing. Writing is a huge component of the curriculum in the Help Desk program, again, because they're not just writing an essay and handing it to me, and I'm not
You're writing an essay and handing it to the world.
And blogging has a whole, there's aesthetics that are involved with blogging in terms of images that you can use and multimedia elements that you can put into a blog. So, and understanding that, you know, we live in a media-rich digital world now, and when a lot of times people are reading from their mobile devices. So students are learning about, you know, how do I make my blog look, and how does it look on an iPhone, how does it look on an iPad, and how can I hook the reader, and what should my title be, and you know, these are all things that can, if they learn to do this.
Because it's also a marketing component,
absolutely,
in essence.
Yeah, and that's where my marketing background comes into play. So if they can learn how to do this at a young age, and you know, say for example, their dream company to work for is Google or Apple. You know, if they start blogging about Google and Apple and things that they're passionate about.
Google and Apple are like,
Google and Apple, when they go to Google search that student's name and they come across their blog, that's the goal, is to get the student's blog to be
get noticed.
The high Google ranking. So, and that's not just exclusive to the Help Desk. We have hundreds of, there's so many teachers in the district that have a classroom blog. So in terms of how...
That's how I follow what's going on in my kids' classrooms.
It's wonderful. So it doesn't matter, you know, what grade. There's blogs in this district at the elementary, middle, and high school level. It's a great way for teachers to connect with parents. All of the administrators have a blog here.
Even the preschool teachers have.
And I think that's one of the big reasons why this community is so open-minded about technology, and they're not, a lot of districts are still blocking and banning access to a lot of these tools, and ironically, they deal with a lot of cyberbullying. And here, students have access to the technology. They're trusted, they're educated from a young age about how to use social media tools safely and responsibly and ethically. It's called digital citizenship, which is something I'm really passionate about. And so by the time they get to high school, they really understand that they're creating a digital dossier, if you will, or a digital footprint. And they want to be able to control that, and they want to be proud when, you know, somebody we want somebody to Google our students' names and, again, have the content that they've created that's positive and professional to pop up. So, you know, this is not easy work at all, and I think we're all dedicated to that, and because it's almost like driver's ed, you know, when you're teaching a student to drive, you sit next to them, you give them the keys, but you're guiding them through it. If you don't train them, you know, if you just hand them the keys and say good luck,
have fun,
what's going to happen?
Exactly.
So that's what we want to do. We want to model for them appropriate use, talk to them about the consequences of misuse, and implement consequences if...
Once it's out there, it's out there.
Exactly, and I think kids understand that, and you know, I'm really fortunate. I don't think, you know, this is unique. It's just the approach that we have. I think a lot of schools could do the same thing if they just rolled up their sleeves and said, you know what, we're gonna do this hard work, and we're gonna educate our students, and you know, we're gonna create this positive online community so that we're creating positive digital citizens, because there's no shortage of negative use of social media out there that kids see in the mainstream media, and we want them to think critically about what they see and hopefully not partake in a lot of those sometimes those discussions that you see that make headlines. So
yes, unfortunately make headlines. Okay, total tangent.
Sure.
Tell me more about the Google Educator group, and you just traveled for Google, and what's the whole relationship between you and Google?
I'm a big Google fangirl.
Okay.
I'm an Apple fangirl as well, but I mentioned earlier I was a rogue Google Apps user at my previous district, and I came here, and we're a fully integrated Google Apps for Education district. So,
yeah, what does that mean?
Google Apps for Education. So there's Google for Enterprise for businesses, and then there's also Google Apps for Education.
Oh, okay.
Which Google will provide a set of tools that are free for schools to use. Okay. And so tools like Gmail for email access, Google Calendar, Google Docs, which is similar to Microsoft Word, exactly. Okay. The spreadsheet program is called Google Sheets. The presentation program is called Google Slides. And then there's Google Earth, there's Google Maps, there's Google Hangouts, so you can do like video calling similar to Skype.
Cool.
Google will provide unlimited storage for schools.
Okay.
Yes, and which is great.
Huge. No pun intended.
Exactly. And so it's cloud-based storage, so the Google Apps are available on any device. So I can sign into Google Classroom on my phone, and so can students. On a Mac, on a PC, it doesn't matter. So I started doing a lot of training on Google Apps and learned about the Google Trainer program that they offered, that Google offered. So I decided, you know what, I think I'm going to pursue this, and it required me to take 5 exams. I did it over the summer. I'm not a huge fan of tests.
No.
I get test anxiety. But I did it over the summer. I had 90 days to complete all 5 exams. They're very affordable. I want to say they were about $60 for the bundle of exams. They were all multiple choice. Some of them, and they were timed.
And you needed a number 2 pencil.
You did it online, yeah. That would have been ironic. You had to score an 80 or better on each test, and then to be a trainer, you also had to have a Google Apps specific resume. So you had to have sort of evidence of trainings that you've been doing, presentations that you had been doing. You had to do a case study. So you had to identify a problem that a Google tool was solving. And in our case, my case study was Google Classroom. Google Classroom was a great tool that was introduced going on 2 years now that allowed a seamless digital workflow. It integrated with a lot of different apps, so students could create
all Google-related apps. Any
app? And that was the beauty and the power of Classroom. So teachers could have students creating apps or projects in apps like TouchCast and iMovie and Adobe Voice. It didn't matter what it was. They could easily submit those projects through Google Classroom. So for me personally, I haven't printed in 5 years work from students. They don't have to print for me. The other powerful aspect of Google Classroom is its ease of use. It's highly intuitive, and that's the kind of technology that I like.
Yeah.
Because it's the kind of technology that
most people,
someone who isn't tech savvy, right? A lot of well, I'm not tech savvy. Well, it's 2016, and the kids in your class were born in 2001, and some of them, so some of them are walking into a classroom and they already understand augmented reality. I mean, so you kind of have to realize that you're interacting with a different type of learner, and they're smart enough to know I can just Google this answer. So we have to kind of think a little bit more critically about the way we're instructing and the kinds of questions we're asking, and we don't want students to have to necessarily just easily Google the answer. But so Classroom in particular, a lot of people embraced, a lot of teachers embraced, because it really integrated well with all the other Google apps and a lot of other apps that they were using. So Classroom was my case study. I also had to create a screencast, a tech tutorial of myself to kind of demonstrate my own training style. What else did I have to do? The case study, the video. That was tough because it could only be 2 minutes long, so I had to pick a topic that wasn't,
that could be done in 2 minutes.
It couldn't be too easy, it couldn't be too hard. So I submitted all those materials, and fortunately I was granted my Google Trainer status, which I just got renewed. Once you become
do you have to go through like that whole thing every
You don't.
2
I will have to
years?
take the exam again, the series of exams again, because the thing about Google and just any technology tool in general is that it changes a lot. That's the one constant, is that it's always changing. So a lot of the features have changed, so the new tests are going to come out to reflect those changes. But I won't have to do the case study and the video and all that again. What I do have to do is I have to continue to do training on Google Apps, so in and outside of my district. So I've been doing
outside of your district too?
At conferences and those sort of things. So
I'm like, well, in your district shouldn't be a problem, because it sounds like you're already doing that anyway.
I just trained the whole cafeteria staff. Was it yesterday? Yeah, on Google Drive, learning that application. So after I earned my trainer status, I was nominated by somebody who follows me on Twitter to apply for the Google Innovator Academy program. And I got an email from the Google Apps for Education team that said, congratulations, you've been nominated by Tom Mulaney. Thank you, Tom, if you're watching. But he said all these nice things about my blog and things that he's seen me produce, because I create screencast tutorials as well. Put them on my blog, and you can tell by my blog I do a lot with Google. So I thought, I didn't think about applying, but since he had nominated me and took the time to do that, I thought, why not? I'm going to apply for this. So I had to take another test. And that's great.
Because we already know how much you love taking tests.
This one was actually much better. Actually, it was very, it was sort of like a case study, and they were all questions related to classroom scenarios. So they would give you a scenario, and then you would need to identify the tool that would be appropriate for that task. There was a lot of actual hands-on things that you had to do. So you had to enable your webcam, I think you did, or they could take pictures of you during it, just to make sure it was you taking the test and not somebody else. So it was a hands-on test.
Because I was wondering how they...
Yeah, it was. You got a separate Google account that you signed into, and you actually had to. It was a performance-based test, really. 12 different scenarios with between 2 and 4 tasks in each scenario. So you had to take that first. And I got the results right away. I passed, and I thought, well, I better keep going. I passed the test.
No turning back now.
Yeah, Educator Level 2, and then you had to present an idea for a vision project. So the idea I came up with was to create a certification for schools or school districts, similar to their trainer certification, their innovator certification, and these are all individual based, but I thought Google doesn't have anything to recognize a school. So I love acronyms, and so I came up with the acronym STAR. It would be called the Google Certified STAR School. And STAR stands for Skills, Technology, Academics, and Real World. And Google has a division of their company called Google X. And what Google X employees are charged with is to come up with ideas that they call moonshot ideas and moonshot thinking. So I thought, moon and the star, this is so googly.
The universe is
I thought
coming
Google's
alive.
going to love this idea. And it just fit, and I said, I had to make a video, a 1-minute video, further expanding on my idea. Clearly I can talk for longer than a minute. But I did it, and I just said, I believe that schools should be recognized that are leveraging Google Apps, that are creating the STAR students, that are coming up with these moonshot ideas that are contributing to divisions
Get those
like
little
Google
buzzwords
X.
in there.
So I was awarded, I got into the program. I got into the Innovator program. There were 34 people in my cohort.
National?
National.
Wow.
And I was beside myself, because in my heart of hearts, I knew that it was a long shot, but I felt so
You took
honored.
a test. You deserve it.
I took a test. I'm sure a lot of people, but I knew there were a lot of people that had applied multiple times, and I thought, what are the odds? But, I'm going to go for it. And there was an application that I had to complete as well. There were questions, if you were to design a T-shirt, what would it say? about you? What would your T-shirt say? Who would you have coffee with to help you with your idea? So I went to Mountain View. I got to go to the Google headquarters, and I had 2.5 days of really intense professional development. It was really fast-paced. It was information overload at its finest.
My brain hurts.
Yeah, it was crazy. 33 other really googly people like myself that are really just passionate about, you know, meeting kids where they're at and hopefully changing the world really, and you know, bringing meaningful learning experiences to kids. So the work has just begun because now we have a year to actually try to make our innovation projects
I was going to ask, is your STAR being implemented?
Yeah.
And
so
now with that STAR, you know, with that implementation, how do you go about? Is it like just Burlington, or is it an application process? And
for that STAR certification, I've actually there were 2 other people at the Innovation Academy who really liked my idea. So they sort of abandoned their original ideas, which was allowed, and they called it pivoting. If you want to pivot from your original idea, you know, team up with somebody. So I had 2.
It's like Halloween. I like her costume better.
Exactly. So I'm glad though that there are 2 members of the cohort that approached me early during the academy and said, you know, I really like this idea. Could I work with you? And I said, absolutely. Whether or not Google is going to adopt this idea and actually make it a part of their certification, I don't know. It will take a lot of work. So I have a mentor, Jeff Bradbury. I'm going to give him a shout out. He produces an excellent podcast for teachers called TeacherCast TV. I'm a co-host with him on that podcast with some other awesome folks in the EdTech space. He's my mentor. He knows about this project idea. He's excited about it. And I mean, I think I'd like Burlington to pilot this when we're ready to pilot. And I think what's going to happen is there'll be 2 different levels of STAR certification. There'll be like a level 1 and a level 2.
Is that like based on grade level or size?
It'll be based on all kinds of crazy things. I'm doing a hangout tomorrow night with a couple with the 2 women.
So give me another year. I got to figure this out.
It's going to be a lot, but we're going to work hard, and we're hoping that it'll be something that Google will pick up, or if not Google, then one of their partners, because they have some official partners, educational tech companies that they work with. But there are schools like Burlington, districts like Burlington have been using Google Apps for years now in really great ways, and I think our district and many districts like us in the country deserve to be recognized for making strides in changing the way they're doing things in the classroom. Like, you know, no more just lecture and teacher-led and teacher-centered. It's more about student-centeredness. It's about collaboration and critical thinking and creativity, and how can Google Apps play a role in that, and recognize those schools that are innovating. That word is thrown around all the time, but there are some schools that are really doing that. They're doing things differently, and so I think it would be great to recognize the schools that are doing that.
Okay. Now, we only have about 10 minutes left.
No way.
That
went by quick.
And I know you are planning TED Talks.
Oh, I'm so glad you brought that up. Yes.
I want to make sure to get that in, because that's something.
That is my other passion. So Google, Apple, digital citizenship. And
now, is TED another acronym for something, or is TED the guy?
Technology, Entertainment, and Design. Yep. So TED began in 1984, and then they transitioned.
We had technology back then?
Yeah.
Sorry.
We did. We had some pretty amazing thought leaders. And then TEDx was launched. I'm not sure of the date. But TEDx are independently organized events that bring TED-like experiences to these individual communities that decide to run them. So last year, as part of his 20% time project, that's another part of the help desk curriculum. They do something called the Individual Learning Endeavor. It's a 20% time passion project that students can pursue that's unrelated.
Kind of like a Boy Scout Eagle project or something.
It's based off of Google's 20% time project. Big surprise. So I had a student who had done some TED Talks internationally, Nikhil Thakur. So he said, I'd like to try to bring a TEDx event to Burlington, and I said, let's do it. We also, at that time, 2 years ago, had the opportunity to pilot TED Ed clubs. So TED brought the opportunity to bring TED training to young kids, middle and high school students, to prepare them to give TED-like talks. So we were launching a TED club, and we were one of 100 schools globally.
Wow, globally, wow.
Yeah, that participated in the pilot. I had 5 students that did it, and it was great.
That's impressive.
And so last year we did, Nikhil said, let's try to do a TEDx event. So we applied for a license. There's a big licensure process you have to go through. So he completed the application.
So like because of copyright or?
Yeah, you have to follow. There's a lot of rules in branding and a lot of logistics that you have to follow when you get the license. There are different types of licenses, and we applied for a TEDx youth license. So we launched our event last year.
Was this like an online thing?
No, it's a live. It's a live talks that are just TED Talks can be 18 minutes in length, and so up to 18 minutes. So we had 15 speakers last year, quite a few youth speakers. We had some adults as well, but their message was targeted to youth. So they take to the stage. It's held at the auditorium in the high school, the Performing Arts Center. We have the red circle carpet, which is the famous TED carpet. That's where they stand and they deliver their talks. And the event far exceeded my expectations. It was really successful.
Excellent.
It's streamed live, and we had
so it's streamed, but there's also a live audience.
A live audience as well, and then the videos are archived on YouTube, on TED's YouTube channel, and forever. And so we applied again this year. I applied this year because the license had to be transferred from Nikhil to me, so but I had to reapply. So we got the license again. I was really excited. This is all happening at the same time as me. I became a part of the first cohort of TED Ed Innovator educators. So I got to go to
because you're not doing enough in your spare time.
Yeah, I don't sleep very much, but so I did that. I got to go to TED headquarters in New York City, meet the animators, meet Chris Anderson, who, if you know about TED, you know who Chris Anderson is. It's pretty amazing. So we have 11 confirmed speakers.
Sweet.
April 30th.
April 30th.
Tickets are free. It's an inspiring, incredible day.
Do you have to like pre-register to show up, or do you just show up at the door?
We have an Eventbrite online ticketing, so people can get tickets online. It's bit.ly/TEDxYouthBHS 2016, I believe. We can share that out, I hope. But we have an unlimited number of audience participants who can come. Last year we were limited to only 100 people, but this year, because
why were you limited? Because it was licensing?
Because our very first one. So that was our very first one. But now we can have an unlimited number of people in the audience. I'd love to eventually have a sold-out crowd. It would be incredible. But we have Patrick Larkin from Burlington who's speaking. We have Timmy Sullivan, who's a senior, who'll be speaking. We have some young high school kids from outside of our district who are coming to join us. I have Dr. Mary Alice Kern from Connecticut. I have Star Saxton. She's an author and a blogger from New York coming. My friend, mentor, and TeacherCast TV producer and developer Jeff Bradbury is coming from New Jersey. Eric Johnson, who is coming from Indiana, who established a nonprofit called EraseMeanness.org. So we have people coming in. I mean, Carrie Gallagher, who is an author. She's a director of K-12 education for Connect Safely. She's a digital learning coach at St. John's Prep. We got some great people coming. It's going to be an incredibly inspiring evening or day. It starts at 11.
2 questions.
Yes.
Well, I don't.
And I have a student who's co-organizing with me. She's, She's doing that for her 20% time project this year. Her name's Drini, and she's a junior. So I'm excited because she can do it again next year. It's a lot of work.
License again. Now, are you going to have to transfer the license to her to reapply?
I think I'll keep applying just because I'm going to be the one that will be here, but I'll always have a student on the organizing team. We have a lot of students who are helping with the organization, and our theme is risks and rewards. So it's going to be a really cool
Just about to ask what the theme was, if there was like,
Last year it was disruptive diversity, and it was kind of cool, kind of edgy. And this year it's risks and rewards, so same thing, kind of edgy, but there'll be a lot of provocative ideas shared and a lot of, inspiration to get people to think in new and different ways. And I think it's just going to be super exciting. So it starts at 11 on April 30th. It's a Saturday.
Okay.
So, and we're going to have incredible entertainment provided by Jonathan Granger and his Glee Club from here at the high school. And they're going to be doing at least 3, if not more, performances.
Like between speakers?
Between speakers, exactly. So it sounds like a long time. I think it's going to end about between 3 and 4.
But if everybody only speaks for like 18 minutes, it'll be like a different
They'll probably be less than that too. Yep. And then we're also going to be showing, by license requirements, we have to show 2 TED Talks, actual TED Talks. So we'll be picking 2 that coincide with our theme of risks and rewards. But it's definitely really rewarding to see this event taking place.
Now, you have somebody coming from New Jersey. You have, New York, people coming from like everywhere. Didn't you say like Indiana or something? No.
Yeah.
Okay. Who pays for all of that?
They are paying their own expenses.
Wow. Okay. Well, that's pretty cool then.
I'm hoping that over time, as this event grows, we can get some sponsorships, maybe work with the Chamber of Commerce and maybe some other districts to do maybe a multi-district TEDx of some sort. But we'll see, So they're just passionate about youth because, again, this is tailored to a youth audience. So I'm really grateful that they're doing this, and these are people, again, that I met through a lot of social media platforms, and they're in my PLN. Eric Johnson's also a TED Ed Innovator, part of the Innovator Education group, and I just really admire his work. And all the adults who are coming are people that I consider, my mentor, and they've contributed to my professional learning and growth. And hopefully, on that note, too, I could maybe convince a couple members of the IT department here in Burlington to do a TED Talk in the future, because there's some pretty incredible folks that do the technology here.
Do you hope to repeat this every year, or is this like every 2 years?
I would like to make it an annual event. I have one of my dear friends and colleagues here in Burlington that's co-organizing with me. Her name's Colleen Jenkins. I just had dinner with her prior to the show, and she's the speech and language pathologist here in the district. And she kind of became my backstage right-hand gal last year. Kept me sane. It was a pretty intense event last year.
Yeah, well, it's first time out, too.
Yeah, it was, you mentioned event planning, so I was just hoping. And at the first intermission, when a student came up to me and she just looked at me and she said, "This is awesome," I thought, okay, now I can breathe, and people were inspired, and Colleen helped me so much.
Makes it all worth it.
When I got the license, I went right to her and I said, "Guess what?
We're doing it again."
I said, "Do you want to be my official co-organizer?" So she's on the record, on the books with TED as being an official co-organizer, and I know that we're way ahead of schedule compared to last year. I learned a lot last year. I worked with I have to thank BCAT in advance for everything they're going to do to help us. They handle the live stream.
Wow.
And I learned all Final Cut Pro last year.
Wow.
I had to do the post-production. So we have a post-production team this year. It's not going to be just me and Corey in the back.
And we're out of time.
Awesome.
So, April 30th.
Yes.
TED Talks, 11 o'clock. And
AM,
AM, yes. If anybody wants more information, they can contact you at the school.
Absolutely.
They can email me, and I can put them in contact with you.
Yeah, they could go to TEDxYouthBHS.com also for tickets. Good. So I'm excited.
Well, I do want to thank everyone for joining us this evening. I hope you found our conversation as enlightening and educational as I did. So have a wonderful week, and I'll see you around town. Good night.